Now to the growing push to delay a key part of President Obama's health care law, according to a brand new Rasmussen poll. Look at that. A majority of Americans are now in favor of delaying the start of the individual mandate, a stipulation requiring all Americans to either purchase health care or face a very hefty fine. This after the administration's decision last week to delay a similar requirement for business. Let's bring in our political insiders. John LeBoutillier, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell, Fox News contributor, former pollster for President Jimmy Carter. Doug Schoen, he too a Fox News contributor and a former pollster for Bill Clinton. He joins us live from Tucson, Arizona. So Doug, let me start with you.
Sure.
Is this a president who is increasingly looking like the biggest lame duck president since Richard Nixon?
Well, I think that's a fair statement. You look at immigration, bottom line, that's, I think, going to be dead in the water in the House. You were absolutely right about the health care. There's large-scale pulling back on that. The food stamp program is in dire trouble with the passage of the Farm Bill this week and the separation of that from the food stamp program. So bottom line, the agenda's dead. There's no movement towards a balanced budget, Gregg. And bottom line, the agenda domestically is dead in the water, and internationally, we look impotent.
You know, Pat, when you Google, as I just did a moment ago, Barack Obama and the words lame duck, there's like a gazillion hits.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I think legislatively he's a lame duck. What I think the administration decided is they're not going to get anything passed. And that is why they are going all out to try to do everything administratively. Whether it is on the health care law, the appointments he does. We see Harry Reid is threatening a nuclear option in the Senate. The president's decided to use his appointments and regulatory process to change the country. I mean, really, we have a lawless administration. We had one under George Bush too, with Cheney said the president has absolute power. But essentially what we've done is given up the idea of rule of law here. We don't care about legislation. It's important we'll do it.
Where does, and you're a lawyer, Gregg, where does the president, even though Obamacare was his legislation,
right,
where does he get off just announcing, oh, I'm delaying by a year part of the law?
I've got section 1513 in front of me right here. And the mandate shall begin January 1 of this next year. Shall in the law
he announces,
is mandatory.
The White House last week announces we're delaying it for a year. Where is someone coming forward other than Senator Tom Harkin, who's the only one who's a liberal? I don't see anybody in the media. I don't even see any Republicans coming out and saying he can't do this.
Well, I did talk to Senator Barrasso, and he said it's lawlessness.
Good. Well, using Pat's term, lawless administration, fits what's going on in the whole thing.
Right.
Because we have the NSA, we have the IRS, that's the biggest one. We had Benghazi. We had all these things that show a disregard for the law. Yet the Republicans are not pursuing it. So it's sitting there in a vacuum.
Doug, let me go to you on this. Where is this thing headed? Is it going to be more than just the large businesses that are going to get a delay? What about individuals? I mean, this president's all about fairness. And if you're going to be fair, you got to give it to individuals and small businesses, don't you?
Well, and I think if you go back, Gregg, to something Pat and John and I have been talking about with you for really months now, the whole notion of delaying the implementation of Obamacare, which is a message and a tactic that the Republicans are increasingly coming to. If they use that as an issue in the upcoming midterm elections, it could be politically potent, it could well succeed on the merits, and it could drive a concern that increasingly, as the polls we've been showing show, the American people don't want the legislation. They think it's going to raise cost and make health care more difficult to get.
People are angry about this.
Because everything they were promised turns out to be a lie. It was all BS. You can keep your health insurance. Your rates won't go up. All of that was a lie in order to put more people on. Well,
and now people are beginning to experience it. So what does it mean? I mean, could the Democrats lose the Senate?
They could lose the Senate over this. If the Republicans, who, by the way, the Democrats, remember, their secret weapon is the stupidity of the Republicans,
Right.
who do not know how to make an argument if their lives depended, like you couldn't get out of a wet paper bag. But they have something here with the delay. If you're going to delay one, delay them all. If you delay them all, you kill them all. That's what we've said. And I still say, go after the IRS. What do you want the IRS
Where's the
doing?
IRS investigation to bring out the fact that this key part of Obamacare is so corrupt, we can't entrust it to run the mandates for a year?
John, you're a Republican, so look, what is the Republican play here? I mean, you hear what Pat said. Republicans will invariably screw this up, Pat thinks. What do Republicans do?
I mean, I think the three of us have been very happy that in the last week they did announce that this coming week in the House, Speaker Boehner is bringing a vote on the floor to delay the personal mandate for a year to match the employer mandate. And they're going to have a vote on the employer mandate. Is that going to go
anywhere?
Do you want to see how many Democrats do you think want to vote to keep that mandate? I mean, they can put these guys in the Senate in real vice, potentially.
Right. It'll pass that. You can pass it in the House, Greg, just on Republican votes. Send it to the Senate. And all these senators, Pryor, Landrieu, there are open seats now in Wyoming, Montana, I mean, they're going to be nervous about this thing.
Let's switch now to immigration because that's an important one. A lot going on in the House. Doug, let me go to you on this. Boehner and Paul Ryan want full reform. What's going to happen here? I mean, the Senate has passed their version. What about the House? In bits and pieces?
It doesn't look to me like we're going to get a comprehensive bill, Greg. That's for sure. The House Republicans are adamant that border security be done first. So unless we start with that, I don't think there'll be anything. And then and only then will I think the Republicans in the House agree to a pathway to citizenship. But increasingly the cost of that, as well as the difficulty of it, have become a real problem. And the A word, amnesty, is being bandied about by the Republicans. So I'm frankly pessimistic.
Gentlemen, you agree?
Yeah, I think, by the way, and I think the Republicans have taken up a new argument on immigration. They are saying, which is an interesting one, they're saying the president says he can do whatever he wants with the health care law. Regardless of what the statute says, we can't trust this administration to enforce the provisions in this bill. And you know what? They've got an argument.
Yeah, and maybe with Janet Napolitano leaving, if Obama did care, and I'd like to get back to his whole lame duck thing. I've never seen a re-elected president less interested in any of the stuff we're talking about. He's not pushing any of this stuff. He's disappeared in the first 6 months of his second term.
Let me talk about the Farm Bill, which is trying to wrestle, Doug, with food stamps. I think Americans are now realizing that this is out of control. 101 million people are getting some form of food stamps. That's more people, Doug, than Americans employed.
That's a third of the country.
And here's the issue. It is undeniable that there can and should be some cost comparisons, cost effectiveness studies, an effort to pare the program back. But what is problematic and what is causing the Republicans a problem, because the Farm Bill was done without any attention paid to food stamps, we're now in a position where it's no food stamps versus a program that is unsustainable and out of control.
Yeah,
the American people would want compromise. We're not getting that.
What we lack is common sense. They are promoting this program, and the banks are promoting it because they want to make money on it. I mean, this is a massive, let's get everybody on food stamps dependency. And at the same time, we can't cut out helping people who have real needs. Yeah. That's the problem.
Reports that she is positioning herself for a run at the White House, while some political watchers say that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is a shoo-in for the 2016 Democratic nomination. Didn't they say that
in
a while
06
ago?
and 07.
Let's bring in our political insiders, John LeBoutillier, Pat Caddell, and Doug Schoen. Doug, you're out in Tucson. Let me go back to you first. There's nobody even close to her in any of the polling data. Is she a shoo-in?
Yeah, I think at this point I would say she wins. There are a lot of buts. The first is the president's agenda. she ultimately, as a Democrat, will be held accountable for what is increasingly a failed agenda. As Pat said, her secret weapon and that of the Democrats is the total ineptness of the Republicans. That being said, she also has questions to answer about her term as Secretary of State, Benghazi, and the like. But she's in a commanding position. The polls show it nationally, and I'd much rather be her than any of her challengers on the Democratic or Republican
side. Assuming for the moment that she's the nominee, let's put up a couple of Quinnipiac polls. I ask you guys to interpret these. There you see Clinton versus Christie. There you see Clinton versus Rand Paul. She beats them both. Flip it over to Joe Biden. Well, Biden's tied with Rand Paul, but he gets beat by Christie. Pat?
Well, it's her strength. She's the front runner. Her numbers are down, remember, a little bit because of Benghazi.
Right.
What is interesting in the Republicans having apparently disappeared on their summer of scandals, including Benghazi, is that she is still most threatened by that, about her conduct and what happened there. But right now, she is very strong. She is wiping out everyone in the Democratic Party financially, potentially. Obama has tacitly endorsed her. And that has helped. Basically, she's attracting a lot of Obama people. People are conceding her the nomination. And what is she doing, though? She has no message. She's out running around giving speeches about growing up with her mother. For $100,000 a pop.
John, Republicans could play a constant loop videotape of Hillary at the Benghazi hearing and the angry tirade and what difference does it make, which was an awful moment for her. But Republicans don't have a candidate, do they?
They don't have a candidate. We have a list of candidates that we're going to put up, I guess, so we could go over.
Yeah, let's put up the Iowa poll.
And I'd like to go through them from the bottom up, if you get the list up there.
Put up the Iowa caucus.
Okay,
there it
is.
So
we start with Ted Cruz at the bottom. I believe he was born in Toronto, Canada. We're going to have a problem whether he's eligible to run.
Yeah, he is.
Rubio, well, I'm not sure. Rubio has lost points, as you can see. Immigration, the amnesty position is hurting him on the right. Jeb Bush, Pat and I were just talking off the air. He really isn't doing that well for a Bush. There could be Bush fatigue even in the Republican electorate. Paul Ryan, the VP candidate, the defeated vice presidential candidate, never makes it when they run on their own. Christie, that's the one that can beat Hillary if he's nominated by the Republicans, but he's got problems on the right because he cozied up to Obama last year. Right. And Rand Paul, who is a slightly better political version of his father. They're both very principled. They're good people. I have a feeling they're too libertarian to win a general election.
The most important thing is, in those numbers we saw, is there's no clear front runner. They're all in double digits, basically. No one is made an impression. Christie has in the general election polling. But inside the Republican Party, there is no one stands out, and that's because I think this is a party still looking for a message.
Comment, if you will, on the two people near the top. Christie, is he electable? And what about
Rand?
Electable.
He's electable. He's electable, but I think like I said, he has the problem of getting nominated at the moment. The right has a problem with Christie.
Rand Paul, charismatically challenged?
I think he is. I think he has the one deficit. Look, he's a man of principle. He has strong views. It's attracted people to him. But I don't think he comes across with the kind of personality that people look for in presidents.
All right. Doug, let me put up the PPP poll. And I think you know this poll if you're not in front of a monitor. But it's got Hillary Clinton beating Christie, beating Ryan, beating Paul, beating everybody.
This is in Iowa.
In Iowa, yeah. This is just strictly Iowa.
Yeah, and what I would tell you is Hillary is well positioned in Iowa and in other swing states. She clearly is the front runner. I think Rand Paul is going to be very, very difficult to elect, but he's conceivably nominatable. And as Pat and John were saying correctly, Christie is the strongest candidate, but somebody who is bipartisan, that's toxic in an increasingly conservative Republican Party, especially one without a message.
Most of all, Republicans need a message. They need something, and they need to stop looking like they're
paralyzed. It may be Obamacare is their message.
That could be the beginning of a fight.
All right. Doug Schoen, Pat Caddell, John LeBoutillier, gentlemen, good to see you all. And you can get more from the Political Insiders every Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern at live.foxnews.com. They'll be back here next Sunday. Also, follow them on Twitter at FN Insiders. Harris?